Hello, my dearest friends. Welcome or welcome back to my channel again and the book hunt. Today's video is going to be wrapping up the month of February. And it was a bit of a weird month for me because I did read a lot, but it's a shorter month. So I don't know why I decided to not do a mid-month wrap-up. So today I'm left with talking about 18 books. I don't know what to do because I don't want this to be overly long, but at the same time, there's a couple of books that definitely left an impression on me, so I definitely want to discuss those. So I'm just going to see how I feel about talking all these books and see how I'm going to edit out the unnecessary details. Basically, I had a very good reading month because I did have a couple of 4 to 5 star reads. I did have a couple of disappointments as well, so I'm just going to go ahead and dive in. The first book that I picked up in the month of February was one that I did enjoy. It was an audiobook for Let's Call a Truce by Amy Buchanan. This one is a single mom workplace romance with an enemies to lovers undertone. We've got a heroine who has recently lost her husband and she has 3 kids, so she needs to support them. She needs to go back to work and she hasn't been working in a while, so she's kind of anxious about going back to the work floor, and she gets invited back into the company where she used to work as an HR exec, I think. And when she goes back to work, already on the first day, there is this guy who is in her department who is kind of a hotshot within the department, but she overhears him talking trash about her. And she's like, oh no, you didn't. So from the first day that they meet, there is an animosity between them. So there is this enemies to lovers vibe between them. At the same time, there's a lot of things that we actually don't know about the hero. So there's this unraveling of kind of personal details and secrets that goes on within the story that kind of influences the heroine to look at him in a different light. So I really enjoyed this one. It was a fast-paced, at least for me, a fast-paced read. I finished the audiobook within about a day, so it was a very enjoyable read. I gave it 3.5 stars and I rounded it up to 4 on Goodreads. The next book I read is one that I had on my TBR for a long time, so I really wanted to cross it off and then continue on in the series. It's the first book by Elsie Silver within her new, I think it's called Rose Hill series. The first one is Wild Love. I picked up that one because it just recently got uploaded into Storytel as an audiobook, so it was easy for me to pick up. This one features a single dad, but in a very kind of a weird way, because he actually didn't know that he had a child. He basically donated sperm when he was like a teenager, or I don't know, just really young, and didn't think anything of it. But then nowadays he is a billionaire. He lives in this small town. He is going to be building this music production studio. And then one day this teenager shows up who says, I'm your daughter, you know, like biological daughter, but obviously she has a family that she lives with, and she needs his help, basically, let me put it like that. So he starts to care for her. And the romance within the story is between himself and his best friend's sister, someone who has recently moved back to town because she kind of unraveled her own personal life. She left a boyfriend behind in the city where she was living. She quit her job because of something that had happened. And the two of them start to work together. So this is a single dad, workplace, brothers, best friend romance. I really enjoyed this one. I enjoyed the grumpy versus not really sunshine, but more like a feisty heroine kind of dynamic. And I also enjoyed the fact that he fell first. So yeah, this one was a hit for me. I gave this one 4 stars and I'm definitely continuing on with the series. Now, the next one I have to say was a surprise to me because I've read Sarah Adams before, and most of the books that I've read by this author have been 3.5 to 4 star reads for me. But this one was a 5-star read for me. I highly, highly enjoyed this one. It's her latest, so the 3rd book within a series. And this one is called Beg, Borrow, or Steal. It focuses on one of the sisters within the series, and it's the eldest sister who kind of how should I say, she always feels responsible for everyone else's happiness, but never looks at her own. She is a teacher in the small town where she lives, and the romance is between herself and her rival teacher. Her rival teacher is someone with whom she went to college. They kind of always had a back and forth, so always a rivalry between them. They started to teach at the same school with the same subject, so again, a rivalry between them. So they never saw eye to eye. And nowadays, so basically, he had moved out of town and they hadn't seen each other for a while, but now he's moving back into town, again starting to teach at this school where she works, and he's going to be her neighbor. So there is this forced proximity, rivals to lovers situation with plenty of banter, plenty of shenanigans, and just the chemistry between the two of them, and also the way that the heroine's growth within the book is portrayed is like he complements her growth. Let me put it like that. That is the thing that really kind of captured me within the story, because besides the fact that there is a rivalry between them in the general sense of, you know, their workplace, she aspires to be a writer, and he is a successful writer, but nobody knows that about him because he's been keeping it a secret. So essentially, there is this background kind of a plot line that really intrigued me, that made the story all the more rich for me, and I really, really highly enjoyed this one. I gave it 5 stars. The next one was a 2-star read for me, so I'm not going to spend too much time on this one. It was a Valentine's Day novella, a dark Valentine's Day novella, which was called My Bloody Valentine by Amelia Crawford. I think the audiobook was like a 2-hour audiobook, and essentially it's all about darkness and spy scenes. This is all that this novella was, so let's just leave it for that. And then the next 2 books that I read, I finally started on the series by Niva Altai. I think you say her name Altai and not Altaj, because I was listening to the audiobooks and that's how the narrators pronounce her name. So the first book within her Mafia series is called Painted Scars. This one focuses on a Russian mobster who, at the beginning of the story, he got his car bombed. So he has suffered an injury because of that, and he's in a wheelchair. He has been going through rehabilitation, and because of what happened, all of his advisors are like, you need to kind of make it a point to everyone that you are still, you know, the hard kind of bratva boss that you are. And he needed to prove that he's also willing to make some kind of sacrifices, and that he needs to get married, and it's going to be a marriage of convenience. And he finds the perfect candidate. So there is this marriage of convenience situation, there is this injured hero situation, and the romance between himself and the heroine is quite gradually wholesome, and that is something that you don't find often in mafia romances. So I really, really enjoyed this one. I give this one 3.5 to 4 stars, and then I immediately continued on to the second book, which is called Broken Whispers. This one focuses on like the second, like the right-hand man of the hero from the first book, and he is a scarred hero, and he also enters into a marriage of convenience situation with the Italian mobs, like one of the guys' daughters. And she actually is a ballerina, and he actually had his eyes on her before the arrangement even happened. So he definitely fell first. He's very overprotective of her. And the whole arrangement between them is so well matched, because even though she didn't know of him, she immediately got fascinated by him with the way that everyone is fearing him, but how she senses that at the core of him, he's not the person that he portrays to everyone that he is, but he is someone who is very different. At least with her, he's very different. And again, this is another kind of a very wholesome kind of a love story between a mobster and someone within the Italian mafia circles. And I really highly enjoyed this one as well. Again, 3.5 to 4 stars for this one. And I'm definitely continuing on with the series as well. The next book I'm not going to go into too much detail for, because I had a reading vlog that is dedicated to this book and a couple of other books. This is Endgame by G.A. Mazurk. This is a hockey romance that I didn't particularly enjoy, because it was almost a 700-page contemporary sports romance that just featured every and any kind of trope that you can imagine, and it wasn't just flushed out as well as it should have. So I gave this one 2.5 to 3 stars, and it just wasn't a favorite. If you want to check out my full thoughts on it, you can check out my hockey reading blog that I posted a couple of days ago. And the second one within that vlog was Book Shy by Kayla Gross. That one I did very much enjoy. It's a short Valentine's Day hockey novella that features 2 characters who meet up in a sex club and they fall for each other. That one I highly enjoyed. I gave that one 4 stars. And then the third book within that reading vlog was Mr. Broody by Piper Rain. This is an audiobook that I picked up that I enjoyed because it was done in duet narration style. I highly enjoy such audiobooks. They're very interactive for me and I fly through them usually, and this one was no exception. This one was a hockey romance that is a second chance romance. It was quite enjoyable. I gave this one 3.5 stars, and I'm definitely continuing on with the series because I'm invested in all the characters now, because this one was the second book within a series. So I'm going to be reading Mr. Swoony soon. And those were the 3 hockey romances that I picked up for that reading vlog. If you again want to check out my thoughts, you can watch that one if you haven't yet. And then I read through Kindle Unlimited the second book within the Hot Shots Wildfire Firefighter series by 3 different authors. The first one was Fight. I read that one in January. Then in February, I read Protect, which is the second book. This one is a second chance romance that features a single mom and a hero who is obviously a wildfire firefighter. He basically was her brother's best friend, and they had a relationship when they were teenagers, but he broke it off with her and he broke her heart. But he did it for very specific reasons, and she never knew what his reasoning was behind breaking up with her, so she always held a grudge against him. And she moved out of the small town that they both used to live in. But now she's back because she has recently gotten divorced and she has a child. She has moved back so she can get some help from her parents and her close ones. And she has started working in the hospital. And he, during one of the wildfires, gets injured. And she is the nurse who helps him recover. So she is part of his rehabilitation process. So there are some great scenes within this book where they're reconnecting. There is a very good second chance romance built up within this story, and there is some banter between them. There is some groveling from the hero side, and also a very good connection between himself and the heroine's child. So yeah, I really did enjoy this one as well. I gave it 3.5 to 4 stars, and I definitely did continue on with the series, but I just finished the last book a couple of days ago, so that one will be featured in my March wrap-up. And then I read my next 5-star read, and that is Deep End by Ali Hazelwood. And I already mentioned in one of my previous videos for new releases. I'm going to be linking that one up in the cards as well if you want to check it out. Deep End is one of the stories that became kind of controversial of Ali Hazelwood's because it features a BDSM relationship, and many people kind of were used to her more fluffy kind of romances, like The Love Hypothesis and Love on the Brain and Love Theoretically. But then since last year, she has been venturing out into new territories. She did a paranormal romance. Last year, she did quite a spicy, almost bordering on erotica kind of romance. And this one was also kind of spicy, but I wouldn't say the spiciest. I don't know. I felt like a lot of people kind of exaggerated the spice within this specific book. I didn't find it to be too spicy, maybe because I read spicy books in general, and this one just didn't really hit any different from the books that I usually read. I don't know. But this one features a new adult romance, a college romance between a hero and heroine who are both athletes. He is a swimmer, she is a diver, and both of them are going to competitions. Both of them, so he is already an Olympic medal winner. She really wants to go to the Olympics, but doesn't know if she's going to make it. because she had an injury and now she has something, I don't know what it's called, but it's this fear that what happened during her injury is going to happen again. So subconsciously she cannot perform at the level that she usually does. So the romance is between the two of them, and I do find that there are certain things within the book that can be quite frustrating, and I do understand that some people wouldn't love this story, but for me, it just hit right. I really, really highly enjoyed this one. I enjoyed the references to certain things that quite interest me. Specifically, he is Swedish, I'm from Europe, and I enjoy these kinds of cultural differences between characters. There is also a reference to Amsterdam, something that is quite close to my heart. And I just highly enjoyed everything about this story, the build up to their romance, the fact that it firstly was built upon their mutual kind of attraction and the fact that both of them are into BDSM, but then growing into really getting to know each other and appreciating different things about each other, and the fact that the hero is a total simp for the heroine. I love Lucas to the bottom of my heart. So yeah, this one just really worked for me. I gave this one 5 stars, and I do understand that not everyone is going to be loving this one, but for me, it just hit right. Next up, I read the new release by Hannah Bonham Young, which is called Out of the Woods. This one was one of my anticipated releases for the year because it features a marriage in crisis trope, something that is one of my favorite tropes, basically. And I really did enjoy this one. It was quite different than other marriage in crisis romances that I've read, and I really do appreciate that. There were maybe certain things that I was missing in the book, which is why I gave it 4 stars instead of 5, but I would definitely recommend this book. It's really a book that is worth picking up because it does deal with different topics within whatever kind of problems can arise whenever you've been with someone for a very long time, because that is usually what we want to see, right? Because we all get the fact that when you're just meeting someone, you have this wonderful meet cute and you're in love and everything is going well, that there's not going to be a lot of conflict. But then when you've been with someone for 15 or 20 years or whatever, you want to know, how do you keep that relationship alive? And this book very much focuses on that. And also on the fact that the heroine has lost someone that is close to her, and she's trying to deal with the grief that surrounds that whole situation. The two of them go on a therapy hiking retreat where they're supposed to be working out their issues in a week's time together with some therapists and other people who have joined the retreat. And I really appreciated that concept within the book. I gave this one 4 stars, and I would definitely recommend it. Now, the next book I picked up, I didn't really enjoy, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. It's a Christmas-themed romance called All I Want Is You. I think I picked it up because I saw Chandler from Chandler Ainsley's channel. She enjoyed that one, so I decided to give it a go. But for me, it just didn't work because this is a romance between 2 authors where the hero did something inexcusable, in my opinion, to further his career and to kind of break the heroine's heart. So whatever kind of grovel he had to do was not going to be enough for me to excuse his behavior in the first place. So yeah, I did finish it, but it was a 2.5 star rating for me in the end. Okay, so the next one was a novella that I also already discussed in one of my previous videos. I'm just going to shortly mention it here. It's Whirlwind by Kayla Gross. This is a new release by this author that I highly enjoyed. I gave this one 4 stars. It's a reimagining of the movie Twister, where we've got a relationship between a hero and heroine who are both in the field of researching tornadoes. And he is her professor, she is his student, so there is a forbidden aspect within this book as well as an age gap. So yeah, if you've read Kayla Gross books before, you will know that this is a spicy novella and that it's quite short, so the development is quite fast. But I found that it was well-rounded. Even for a novella, I did find that it wasn't too rushed and that it just made sense how it worked out. So yeah, I did enjoy it and I gave it 4 stars. Next up, I picked up 6 Scorched Roses by Carissa Broadbent. This is a novella within her Nyaxia world. I really enjoyed this one. It was released on Storytel through audiobook, so I managed to pick up the audiobook, but I do have a physical copy of it and I'm happy that I do because I really did enjoy it. This one focuses on the romance between Lilith and Vale. Vale is a vampire, Lilith is a human, and the two of them strike up a bargain because Lilith needs his blood to research the makings of a cure potentially for a disease that is ailing her people and her region. So they strike up a deal that she's going to come by, give him this enchanted rose, and he's going to give her some blood, and she comes every month or so, and they get to know each other in the process of that. And in the meantime, they also fall in love. He's a recluse, a grump. She is someone who provokes him, who is breaking down his barriers, and I really highly enjoyed this one. I gave it 4 stars. And the next up, I picked up one of my anticipated releases of last year that I was hoping that I would love as much as the previous 2 books that I read within the series. I'm talking about The Songbird and the Heart of Stone by Carissa Broadbent. This is essentially the 3rd book within her Nyaxia world that is a full-length novel. The first 2 were a duology that are focusing on one couple, and then this one would continue on within the same world, but would focus on different characters. We're focusing on Mish, who we saw already in the duology. She was the best friend of the hero from the last 2 books, Rain, and we're following her progression within this quest to wake up or potentially defeat a god. And she goes on this quest with the hero within the book, whose name is Asar. And the 2 of them need to go through different kinds of trials to get to the end point of them getting to this god. And it's, I think there were like, were they 5 trials? I think there were 5 trials, and every single trial is more difficult than the other. The thing for me was, I really did appreciate a couple of things within the book. First of all, Mish, in this book, we find out that she is struggling with some kind of a religious kind of dogma within her past, because she was supposed to be devoted to this god. She was supposed to be celibate, and she was supposed to be this person who is giving herself up to this religion. But then once she was turned into a vampire, that kind of changed for her, and she was contemplating very many different aspects within religious dogma and religious kind of progression, and how you feel about yourself whenever you feel like you're tainted. And I really did appreciate that kind of discussion of the struggle within her. However, I did not love the romance. I don't know, I didn't connect to the romance between the 2 characters. I found that Asar's character was kind of underdeveloped. I didn't find any connection with him because I didn't get to know him very well. The story was very much focused on Mish and also on the trials. So for me, I don't know, it could be that the second book, because this is also going to be a duology, the second book might give us more insight into Asar and might develop their romance a bit more and would make me more intrigued in them as a couple. So I'm definitely going to pick up the next book. But for this one, it just wasn't the favorite. I gave this one 3.5 stars, and I rounded it up to 4 on Goodreads. And then I'm not sure who recommended this one. It was someone on Instagram, but I don't remember who it was. But I read this sci-fi book that is not specifically a romance, it's more so a heist book. It's called A Full Speed to a Crash Landing by Beth Revis. This is actually a novella that is going to be a couple of novellas in a row focusing on this heist. It's a sci-fi, it's mentioned in Goodreads that it's a sci-fi, high-octane, sexy space heist. And it was fun, it was engaging, it was funny, and there was kind of a slight romance within it, which made it intriguing. And yeah, I had fun with it. I give it 4 stars, and I'm going to be picking up the next book. And then we're coming through to the last book that I finished in the month of February, which was a YA paranormal romance. This one is called A Cruel Thirst by Angela Montoya. This book features a hero whose family was killed off by vampires, so he hates vampires, and he decides that he wants to get his revenge on the people who killed his parents, or on the vampires who killed his parents. So he goes to this club that is a vampire-owned club, and obviously he gets turned into a vampire because he cannot on his own take on all of the vampires there. So he gets turned, and he desperately wants to find a cure or a solution for himself on how to not be the monster that he believes that he is. So he goes into this small town, like a mountain town, where he has heard some fables about vampires coming from there. So there might be some kind of an answer or solution for him there. So he goes to this small town and he falls in love with a vampire hunter. So there is very much this enemies to lovers situation. It's also a historical paranormal. So it's set in, I don't know which century, but you do notice that it's not a contemporary. And I found the romance to be cute. I found that there were many adventurous scenes, which made it engaging. And I think for the designated audience, so for a young adult audience, I think someone who is from that generation would really love and appreciate this book probably more than I did. So I think that someone who is maybe 18, 19, 20-year-old, they might give this 5 stars. For me, it was a 3.5-star read, but I really did enjoy it, and I would definitely recommend it if you love YA books. All right, my dear friends, these were all the books that I managed to finish in the month of February. I hope that I get to make a mid-month wrap-up video for March so that it doesn't get too long for March, because I potentially will have quite a few books in March because it's a longer month. But thank you so much for sticking around. Let me know what your favorite reads of February were, whether you read any of the books that I picked up and whether you loved them. And I hope to see you in the next one. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a wonderful, marvelous day. Happy reading. Take care.